Welcome to another Sunday night episode of Taking It to the Nub. I'm your host, Boston Jimmie, and tonight this is a show a long time in the making. I've been wanting to get Pete Johnson from Tatuaje Cigars on my show for quite a while. He's an extremely busy man. He's all over the map. He's got family, he's got businesses, he's got shops to visit, he's got places to be. Tonight, he's here with me. So I can't wait to bring Pete on, and we're going to dig into Tatuaje Cigars. Pete Johnson, we're going to learn about, we'll learn a little bit about cigars, obviously, but we're also going to learn a little bit about music, okay? And we're going to learn a little bit about things like the state of Maine, the state of California, and other parts that are all about Pete. So, before we do that, though, let us always start this show with a little sponsor, and then we're going to get things rolling.
Is brought to you by Casa Cuevas Cigars. In the 19th century, Juan Cuevas, Spanish immigrant from Santander, began what was to be a family business which now spans 4 generations. Like others fortunate enough to live and work in Pinar del Rio province of Cuba, Juan commenced cultivating tobacco, turning it into a successful business. Years later, in the Ciabo Valley of the Dominican Republic, Luis Cuevas Sr., Juan Jr.'s son, carried on the family tradition of handcrafting fine cigars in the family's cigar factory, Tabacalera Las Lavas. Today, Luis Sr. is joined by his son Luis Jr. in the manufacturing and sale of premium long filler cigars. So check out Casa Cuevas Cigars at www.casacuevascigars.com and on their Instagram and Facebook channels.
Catelli Cigars is back. The past few years brought many questions and changes to the cigar industry. In the wake of all uncertainty, Catelli Cigars decided to take a break and try their hand in the retail side of cigars. With 2 shops under their belt, first Riverside Cigar Bar, and now the Catelli Cigar Lounge in Vero Beach, Florida, they are now more educated in the retail and the wholesale sides of the cigar business. During this time, they received many inquiries about their cigars returning to the market. Making the difficult decision to take a break from their brand was eased knowing that when the time was right, Catelli would be back, and now they are. Catelli is excited to bring their first release, the Catelli Box Air, back to market. The Box Air, a rich box-pressed San Andreas Mexican Maduro with a Nicaraguan binder and filler, come in Box Air's 3 original sizes, Robusto, Toro, and Gordo. You can check out Catelli Cigars at catellicigars.com. And also check out their Facebook and Instagram pages. Mr. Johnson, how are you?
Good. How are you? How you doing
Good.
tonight?
Good. I'm doing wonderful. We were just talking pre-show that we're both kind of getting over whatever this garbage is that's running around the world called the flu or a cold or whatever. So hopefully,
Whatever you want to call it nowadays, I don't think it matters.
it doesn't matter. It just feel like crap for a while, and
it's a quick one. I mean, it's a couple day bug that you just know you got something, and I think I did a 3 day Z-Pack. Yeah, that's what it was. It was super quick.
I was
I guess that's the extra strength one.
Mine was 5 day Z pack, but I went through, so this is going on 8 days, but I was
Wow.
fine after the Z pack. I felt like 110%, which is what Z packs do for you halfway through it. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it kind of like there was like a little resurgence, which is the same thing my
Like
wife
a
had.
wave. Yeah.
Yeah, it was another wave came in, and then it kind of now it's tailing off. So hopefully
Well,
this is the end of it.
maybe I'm on the second part of the wave and my wife is still in the first part
Yeah, well, that's
because I
possible.
had something coming back from Nicaragua. So, and that was
Wow.
about shit. Kind of been running around a lot. So that was a couple weeks ago already. Wow.
Yeah,
Shit.
you've been bouncing around the world there. You were just over in Madrid, I saw.
Yeah, we went for a football match of all things. It's a good
Like
place to
a
see
like
soccer.
a
Yeah.
soccer match. Yes, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Good place. It's a good place to see a good soccer match.
Did you
Um,
march? Did you march to the arena?
no, no. We stood outside the arena. Well, we had lunch right next to the arena, and then stood outside the arena for about 4 hours, um, drinking. And it's not like it's like warm out over there either. So it was
No,
warm
not this
enough
time of
to
the year.
it was warm enough to be comfortable.
Hmm.
But a couple shots of tequila and a few beers, which I don't drink beer, but for some reason, you have a good excuse to drink beer during a football match. And there's no drinking of alcohol or smoking in the stadium anymore.
Oh, you can't drink in the stadium.
You can drink near beer.
So you got to
Like,
be you got to get your drunk on before you get in.
yeah, I guess you could call it a little bit of a drunk on because you definitely get enough in you to get emotional when you start hearing the music and the vibes inside the building. So it's pretty cool.
So that's not your first time in Madrid, obviously.
No, no, we've been a few times.
You ever been to a place called I think it's called Magdalena or something like that? It's a cigar shop. Um,
Ah, no,
it's
you
a
know what?
it's
I
got
have
like the
never.
largest collection of New World cigars I've ever seen in Europe.
I have never actually. Surprisingly enough, it's a little further than where we're staying, so it's like a pretty far taxi ride for us to get to.
Mm, okay.
Um, but we do actually. You know the owner's name?
Um, I could probably look it up
Well,
off
because
the top of
okay,
my
then
head. No, I wrote an article on it, so
I
it's
might be
probably in the article.
confusing Thomas's store with someone else. But there is one shop in Madrid that is a big fan of New World, quote
Yeah,
unquote,
this
New World
place
product.
was just absolutely amazing. And I could tell you it was one of those things where I walked in and there was just this huge walk-in humidor of all New World cigars and
It
little
might
two
be.
foot by 2 foot square section of Cubans that were practically not full
It might be
and
Thomas's
overpriced.
place. I always
Mhm.
get mixed up with store names,
Yeah.
um, especially Spanish store names.
You have a few stores under your belt.
Yeah. No, and honestly, like we don't deal like we meet up with a lot of the retailers in Europe, but we don't actually deal so much directly with them. The distributor does. So a lot of
Oh,
times,
okay.
like the last time we spent time with this guy named Thomas over in Madrid was it's been before the pandemic. So, and the only time I see him now is in Germany during the Dortmund trade show. But he's got a big collection of New World product. I'm not sure if that's the name of his store.
Hmm.
I could be totally off. It might be his store. But
Yeah, I'm gonna
yeah, I'm
have to
bad with
look it.
names.
I'm gonna have to look it up. I know I did something on it.
My wife
But
could tell me in
anyway,
2 seconds
it
though, because she
it,
speaks the
it
language
was
better than I do.
it was a really nice place, and I was able to sit right across the street. There was a beautiful cafe. Sat down, a double espresso, a nice piece of cake. Just did people watching,
Yeah,
and
like they like you they love people smoking outside.
they
It's
do.
amazing the culture, how like any cafe you can sit down and light up a cigar and it's beautiful
Hmm.
actually.
Yeah, and they cater to you. They're like, "Hey, can I get you something else?" And
We have a couple restaurants in Miami that are very much like that, very pro cigar. Um, you know, we have a few favorites that we go to that are, an indoor restaurant, so we can't do anything about that.
oh,
But
okay.
but there are a couple restaurants that have outdoor patio seating that they have cigar ashtrays, they promote it, like they want to do more with it, which is really awesome. So like I had friends coming in from Los Angeles and also from London, and we actually ended up at this one restaurant multiple days in a row because they kind of got used to us and they
Hmm.
were okay with four guys smoking cigars.
So this is the place. Let me look this up. Let me show you this just before we move on. So this is the place. It's called Cava de Magallanes. Okay.
It might be. Oh well, no, you know what?
This is
I've
the
never. That's not. Is that in the store?
yeah.
Then no, I've never been there.
Yeah, this is their
Oh,
outside. This is their
actually,
humidor.
you
This
know
is their
what?
humidor.
Uh, How long ago did that?
This is
See,
April. April 23.
okay, so part of the store looks like Thomas's store, but
This could be a sister shop.
wow,
Let's see if
yeah,
I
that's but I don't remember that
and they
like
also
that
sell
vintage look.
spirits in the back. And they also have all these whiskeys and things for sale too.
Was it in the center of Madrid or was it outside a little bit?
Ah, I guess it was kind of in the center. I mean, we were bouncing around, my colleagues and I.
Yeah,
It's owned by well, the shop attendant's name was Vireldo D'Amico.
yeah.
Um, oh yeah, and
Uh,
Arnie Seraphin turned me on to him. He said, "You got to
Very
check
cool.
this place out. You got to check this
Yeah.
place out." So that's how I found
Again,
out
I'm
about
I'm
it.
horrible with names, but the Magdalena, it's Magdalena's, no, or Magallanes.
Yeah, it's right on Cal. It's on the Avenue de Magdalene. So it's right on that. That's the name of the street actually that it's on.
You know what? I'll have to look it up because
Um,
I'm cross-referencing maybe
and
the wrong place.
this is this is the general location of it.
Here, let me look at the map real quick. Sorry, guys. I'm being.
All right.
I'm gonna
So
look at the.
I'm sitting here. We're in the center here. So if I zoom into the center, center went off. So it's up here. It's up in the little up north of, I guess, the center of Madrid. There's the History
Yeah,
Museum, and it's up this way. It's up top near San Rafael Hospital, that area.
yeah. We have not been there. So like, if you zoom in a little bit towards that area, we're near in an area called Salamanca, which is kind of like where the main park is with that the big, I forgot the name of it, the big entry they call it.
Oh, this thing, this one here,
I don't know if it's that
Park
big
de
park though.
Attraction. That's a pretty big park.
Yeah,
And
we might be on the totally opposite. Like, you know where the Plaza Mayor was? You know if it's anywhere near Plaza Mayor?
I don't know.
The Plaza Mayor is like, the old center plaza
Oh, yeah. Where the the
where they
government
used to,
building
yeah,
is,
where they
but a
used to
big
behead
government
people.
building. It was within walking distance of that.
Oh, shit. Then yeah, then I've totally missed it.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of it was within because we walked there. I mean, it wasn't like a short walk, but we
Oh, yeah.
walked there.
It's a
Which
great walking city for sure.
I absolutely love Madrid. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I can tell you I have not been to that location.
Okay. Well, now
Um,
you know.
Now I know. Now I need to go there.
Now you need to go back to Madrid.
Well, yeah, it's a good excuse to go back to Madrid. You know what it is? Every time we're in Madrid is like kind of a tail end of our trip to Germany, and we try to decompress and not do business. We'll stop in a couple of the local the small tobacco stores to see if they have anything, but we rarely make it like a business portion of the trip.
You ever get
Kind of
over to Mallorca when you're in Spain or that
never
area?
been. Never been.
Go there.
We were last year, not was it, yeah, 23? 23, we ended up on a trip to Denia, which
Hmm.
is outside of Valencia. And we ended up being with Arthur from Perdomo and Rocky and Carlito and shit. Like everybody was on
So
this
you're
trip
telling me
with
this
us.
place was never the same after you left?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like you can't smoke inside restaurants in Spain, but
No.
somehow we got away with it in three restaurants, and one was a three-star Michelin restaurant.
Oh wow. Whoa, whoa. How'd they
Like,
do that?
yeah, they shut it down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty
Wow.
pretty cool. I mean, not for me. It was definitely for Carlito, but definitely not for me. But it was a fun trip because all of us were there. Like, kind of like the CRA board was
Yeah, right. You
having,
guys just converged in.
but
Cigar
it wasn't.
celebrities are in town.
It had
Hey.
nothing to do with the CRA either. So it was kind of it was our distributor from Spain happens to distribute everybody, and he wanted to
Right.
invite everybody to kind of see his places and his business model, and also to open up a new little cigar club in Denia.
And that's kind of how it works over there too, right? I mean, it's just you get a few distributors that handle the whole damn country.
Yeah, yeah. This guy is he's amazing. The one thing I love about him, aside from his distribution models, he um, he makes wine also. So that's even helpful. Sorry about the plane if you can hear it in the background.
Wait, wait. You have a plane in the background?
No, the
I got one too. It's just coming over.
yeah, but we're
There's a
way
plane coming
far.
over my house right now.
Yeah, I got a plane coming over my house right now.
That's funny. I'm
But you're like I'm in Miami, so where are you? What airport are you
in
near?
Melbourne
Oh,
Airport.
okay, yeah. So
We're 200 miles away.
yeah, I don't think you can hear the same plane I hear.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But we get planes all the time. I get rockets though. You don't get rockets. I get rockets.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, shit. You would see all that stuff up there, huh?
I do. I see
Yeah.
rockets like every other day. There's rockets going up. Shakes the house, rattles the
You know,
windows when the booster lands.
we get every once in a while we get helicopters that do a flyby here, which is just weird because they get a little too close for comfort. I don't think they're supposed to go over us, but somehow they do.
Yeah.
And they always go pretty low, which is creepy. So
Hmm.
anyway, yeah.
Well, that was a great start to the show.
I know. Yeah, we talked about a shop I've never been to and helicopters and planes.
Helicopters
Amazing.
and Black Ops helicopters
Oh,
somewhere in Florida
and colds. Yeah,
and
so
colds.
very uplifting.
What are you drinking tonight?
I'm actually drinking a Willet whiskey that we did a picking of a barrel
Hmm.
with Willet Distillery. 109.2 rye. It's actually
That'll
not too
burn out.
not
That'll
too.
burn out the problem with your throat.
Yeah, it's not too heavy though because I have another one that's 122.2. I chose
Ouch.
this one because I didn't want to kill myself.
Yeah. So I'm actually drinking one of my favorite cabs.
Oh, J. Lore, yeah,
Yeah, that's
very
one of
cool.
my favorite. Goes well with a cigar.
So
And I'm
I
smoking
find
your
wine and cigars.
PCA.
You
Okay,
find wine
yeah,
and you like wine and cigars then?
I do. I do enjoy wine and
See,
cigars, especially red wines.
I do too.
Merlots and Malbecs go really well. If I'm, sometimes in in the afternoon, if I'm in the mood for it, I'll do a Pinot Noir. But I couldn't find a good Malbec on the shelf in this one, so I said, I'm going to get the J Law.
Yeah, I'm actually a big wine and cigar fan, and it's not for everybody, but people always ask me like, what do you pair? I'm like, it's really up to you.
I like the
Like,
fruit. I like the
yeah,
fruit notes that go with the cigar. Okay, and it
yeah,
just that and the tannins. It's
yep.
kind of
I
like
was gonna say the
it's kind of
tannins.
like a friend of mine. She explained to me about smoking cigars and pairing it with tea. you know,
Mm,
and the
the tannins.
reason because of the tannins, and they
Yeah.
bring out and they complement flavors. So I was like, that's probably why I like the wine.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed it. It's always been kind of like that topic of discussion and debate for a lot of people. But you got guys like Michael Herklotz and myself that are really big fans of it, and
Yep.
it ends up being the drink of choice a lot of times. But I've had
Smoke
so
what you
much wine
like, drink
recently.
what you like, pair
Yeah,
what you want. If it works for you, it works for you. You know,
yeah,
that's
because
how
what
I
works
see
for
it.
me is not going to work for everybody else either.
This is true.
Yeah,
Now I'm
it's
actually
amazing.
pairing that wine with a Tatuaje 23 PCA.
Ah, well, actually, should the PCA is Sumatra, so that would actually be good with the cab. You got another plane?
I got a
You really?
helicopter.
Oh, that's funny. Now I have another plane.
Yeah, I don't hear anything on your side. So your
Okay,
mic is
good.
good. Your mic is killing it good. So that's
Oh, that's
awesome.
perfect.
What are you
Yeah,
smoking tonight?
I'm actually smoking the Mummy, the new Mummy for 2025. So
Ah,
the new monster that's going to be coming late September. Late September. I always try to make sure that they're in the warehouse by mid-September so I can prepare the shipments and get them to all the retailers by the first week of October.
you're doing another smash this year?
No, actually, I kind of do those projects almost like every other year,
Hmm.
where I do like a smash or a mash or one of these uh, one of these mixtures. But this year I have something planned. I just don't know if it's going to get done on time because it really has to do a lot with the packaging.
Yeah, that's always a headache, right?
Yeah. Now,
And
but
I
it's
enjoyed I
probably
enjoyed
the
the
biggest
package
headache for
this
most
year.
companies.
No, I enjoyed the Smash package this year. As you know, I took
Yeah.
I took a wager from not a wager, but a dare from Kevin Parrow.
Nice.
He says you ought to just review all 14 cigars. And I say, I've never actually done that, but that is of course that creates a little glitch in my review cycle because I only kind of review one cigar a day
Yeah.
because that's the first cigar of the day and I don't want to mess up any other cigar. So I spent 14 days with your cigars.
Yeah,
You know,
well, at least you got 14 different cigars.
I had 14 different cigars.
Yeah.
It was a good collection, and I enjoyed those Vitolas. So, not everyone was the best, but you know what? In the end, the package I think was well worth the money.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I actually enjoyed that project. The thankfully the family had we had to order the hinges specifically for that box because they had to open up all the way
You had to open up all the way. You had the
because
slide drawer. You had the
the
slide
other
on it.
hinges the other hinges actually in the factory only open up so much so they can the lid on the box stands up perfectly on the shelf. So they're like, I go, no, I need it to open up completely. So yeah, the factory obviously uh, they let me get away with a lot of things, and sometimes it's I have to like go in and thank them profusely after the packaging because it usually ends up being some nightmare that I create for them to do. So they've been
Well,
really good to me.
it's a they excuse me. They gotta love you.
Well,
Let's be real. You started your company.
with them,
And
yeah,
if
yeah.
I with no with them, if I'm not correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe you were the first Pepin like cigar kind of thing. When you talk about Pepin and my father making cigars for other people, they didn't even really exist other than in Miami, right? At
Well,
that time
The Miami factory kind of opened with Tatuaje.
with
Um,
Tato.
uh, yeah, they didn't. The first trade show that I went to in 2003, that's when they launched their own. I'm sorry, 2000. Yeah, 2003.
That's three, right?
That's when they launched their brand also with Don Pepin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But the first production that happened like in May of 2003 was a Tatuaje product.
Right. So you were like the
Um,
first
yeah, that was like
mass-produced Pepin, if you want to think of
the
it that way.
first thing because they didn't have anything set up before that. They were fresh to the United States, and you know, they they were a very small, like we had five rollers, in the beginning in Miami. Now in Miami, we have 12 rollers. It's not a big jump because the space is small. But then when you go to Nicaragua, you have 700 rollers, and then you go to Honduras, you're going to eventually have the equivalent to Nicaragua.
Right.
So yeah, I think we were kind of talking a little bit in the beginning of the show that, or before the show started, that they have grown immensely, and I've purposely probably uh, appreciated being on their caboose of that train instead of trying to keep up with them.
Yeah, and I would think that there are those that are, I would call, in the cigar geeky land, that probably know your story, all right, that follow you, that are a fan of yours, that have been smoking your products for a long time and enjoying it. And then there are those that totally talk about and enjoy my father's cigars and don't know that connection.
Yeah,
They and then somewhere in between, there's the ones that like maybe know that, oh yeah, my father makes those.
yeah, yeah,
All right. But they don't know that there's that relationship that was grown together and creating these wonderful brands that we all endear on the market and are iconic in both directions. Like you said, my
yeah,
father is iconic for, it's just its sheer size and what it's doing now. And
yeah.
you're iconic just, you came in a world of still kind of, we were moving a little into the not so much suit and tie people. I
Yeah.
mean, we had Drew, Jonathan was doing his thing and stuff, but it was still kind of, taking off a little bit. And then you come in, with tattoos on your arm, and people are like going, what's going on with our culture?
Well, yeah, I mean, in 1993, when I started in the industry, um, the first trade show I ever went to, I walked on the floor like I would go to Big Smokes and all these events wearing a suit and tie.
And
Maybe
this is
not a
because
tie.
you were working for a shop or something at that time?
I was actually working for a place called Gus's Smoke Shop
Right.
in Los Angeles, at Studio City, California, originally, and then I moved on to a place called the Big Easy, and eventually ended up at the Grand Havana Room. But early on, I would go to these events wearing a suit, maybe not, maybe like a sweater, V-neck sweater underneath the suit, maybe not so much the tie because I was never really a tie guy. Um, like I tried to do like the proper thing to fit in, like going to the New York Big Smokes all the time and helping Jason Newman and Mike Cigars. And people probably don't even know that Mike Cigars used to pass out cigars at the Big Smokes with their Bauza line that was made by Fuente. But I would go to those Big Smokes and just help out these guys behind their booth wearing a suit. That was my thing. Like I wanted to make sure I paid respect to the people that I was in the room with. And then eventually, one year I went to the trade show and my luggage got lost. And I walked on the trade show floor wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and people saw all the tattoos and they're like, holy shit. Like, and that's kind of where the whole nickname Tattoo Pete came from because
Sure.
of those early days. And it was kind of a shock, but I was the only guy that actually had tattoos visible back then. So
Right.
by the time I ran into, Pepin and actually did my own thing, I was kind of like out of that whole phase of wearing, suits and ties and jackets and stuff like that. And I ended up, becoming friendly with, Jonathan Drew and those guys because, of course, they were right in my wheelhouse's style. I didn't sell their cigars at the Grand Havana Room, but they were kind of like, we vibed. You know what I mean?
Of course, they're just it's the bad boys of of the scene that everybody's like, wow, there's a whole new world coming about,
Yeah.
and and it was awesome because you brought in a lot, the both of yous. I mean, I pay tribute to you for bringing in a lot of the blue collar workers, bringing in cigars that are reasonably priced all the time. I mean, even today, your cigars. I mean, when I think about what I purchased today, right? I'm smoking this one. I smoked the Cajuno or earlier today too, but I
Yep.
bought another one, right? So
The
five, six,
Negociant. Yep.
yeah.
I
So I
see.
had, so I got that one. I
Negociant.
had yeah, I got right.
That's the, yeah, with the Negociant.
Yep.
That's actually on the higher side. I think it's like $11 or so, maybe 12.
This one didn't even have a price on it, so I have no idea what it was.
Free.
Okay, yeah, free, right? I should tell them that, right? And then there was this one,
Or the
the
10-year.
the
Yep.
Jusur, and then the 20-year one, right? And of course, with my 25% discount,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I don't think it cost me $60,
Yeah. I
right?
mean, uh, Jimmy, like,
And the most expensive one in here, I have to think, is probably the I think it's the 20-year, right? This is
yeah,
15
15,
bucks.
15 books. Yeah.
I mean, and that is in today's wheelhouse, and everything else is like 13 and 12, and like,
Like the
I mean,
monsters are the full size monster is going to be 13 in perpetuity, basically,
yeah.
because I pigeonholed myself in that price point because of the marketing behind the monster series.
Oh, thank you.
Um, yeah, I might have offshoots of monsters that don't have the same price point, obviously, but yeah, I'm still a consumer. So for me, and becoming coming from a retail background, I kind of understood. I mean, shit, when I started, smoking and also selling cigars, some of my favorite cigars were $1. So like I still want to have cigars that are approachable to any guy, any person that can afford that price point should be able to find a a premium in what they believe is a premium cigar. Um, that was a big argument when we started doing the CRA and the CAA and all this stuff for the FDA crap with the debate about what a premium cigar is, and the FDA wanted to do a $10
That was
minimum.
boneheaded move that was.
Um, I was like, yeah, but what about the guy that works on a farm that drives a tractor that thinks a $3 cigar is like super premium? Like he should be able
Yeah,
to enjoy a $3 cigar.
absolutely.
So we might have cigars that go up to 67, $70 a cigar, but then we also have cigars that are, starting at 350. So we're trying to hit every bracket no matter what your budget is. And it's interesting because like I've actually seen people with B's in front of their dollar class grab, a $5 cigar over the $70 cigar because they find value in the $5 cigar. So
I- and people, and then also people want to have their humidors full of variety of different things
yeah, yeah.
at different price points, because there are moments where you just want to really just sit back and truly enjoy your cigar. Other times you want to enjoy the cigar, but you got things you're doing around the yard. And we're not going to call them. I don't want to put them in
Yard
yards.
car.
Okay. But, seriously, if you're out there doing some stuff, you're working on something, you got the cigar out there in the ashtray, you pick up, you're puffing on it for a while. You're not sitting there doing this, enjoying
Yeah.
it at that level. And I wouldn't be smoking a $20 cigar doing that.
No,
Okay.
no, yeah, and
Unless the
I wouldn't
$20
either.
cigar I figured was about to worth $6, and then it'd be a different story.
I wouldn't either. But there are cigar smokers that purely smoke cigars for the luxury portion.
Hmm.
That's and there are some cigar smokers out there that believe that if it's not X price, then it's not worthy for them to smoke.
Yeah,
That's a bad way to think about cigars because that a good friend of mine from Italy said one day to me, he said, if you care more about the band, then you really don't care about what you're enjoying. Like you just care purely about what it says on the band instead of actually appreciating the actual cigar and the culture that comes behind it. So
well, it's a lot like this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You go into it, today, No, 30 years ago, I go into a wine shop or a liquor store. There was nowhere near the selection you have today. It's just like cigars. Anytime Dick and Harry goes out to the vineyards and they go buy some barrels and they slap their name on it and they start marketing wine and you start getting those somehow in a wine package that shows up at your door once every couple of
Yeah.
months, you know. But there's not something you could even find on a shelf sometimes, right? And other times you might see them, but then the price points are another thing, right? I mean,
Yep.
a J Law is about that's less than $20,
Yep.
and that's a very nice wine for me. Okay, I've had $50 wines, I've had $150 wines. I'm not a wine connoisseur, so I can honestly tell you between $150 wine that I was sitting back drinking with a friend of mine one day compared to some of the wines I get, which are usually going to be in the $20 to $30 range, I can't tell the difference.
I'll tell you a funny story. I was out getting dog food for my dog, or like some things for her mixture that I do for her. And there's a wine store next door, like an old liquor store in Miami, next door to the dog food store.
Brown liquors?
No, I can't remember what the name of this place is. But I walk in and I see one of my favorite all-time wines from Napa called Alex Blend from Lewis Cellars. Randy Lewis, the race car driver.
Okay.
He made a wine for his son called Alex Blend, and it's kind of a Cab, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Syrah mixture. A lot going
Interesting.
on. And my buddy Dan from, Surrogates Dan, Dan and I, we grew up drinking that wine. So like that wine was one of our favorite wines. And nowadays it's like, I would say it's like $60. It's not cheap. And then I was in Trader Joe's and I happened to buy like this Barolo that was on the higher side as far as the price point for Trader Joe's. And then I had a Spanish wine that I bought online, and I brought them to my sister-in-law's house the other day, and I opened up all three of them because she wanted to do a wine tasting. And I'll be honest, the one from Trader Joe's kind of nailed it for me. Like that was the one that actually was the best value. One of the wines, the Spanish wine, was completely corked. I told her to use it for cooking. I,
Right? I mean,
I, I,
it's
I opened the bottle and immediately I said, "No, we can't drink this." And they're like, "Why?" I go, "It's corked. Like it's not gonna. We're gonna get a headache from it. You're better off cooking with it." So
mhm.
yeah, it was a weird day. But yeah, the Trader Joe's wine was amazing,
Right.
and
Now you're mostly red or you do whites also?
I prefer red.
Hmm.
I mean, I'll do whites on a really hot day, even a rosé, like something obviously like a French rosé or something on a hot day. But I'm not. I don't have a big collection of white wines because white wines eventually turn into brown wines, anyways. The longer you keep them. So that's a funny story, actually. So my wife got a gift from a retailer here in Miami for Christmas. They sent over this cool bottle of Moet, and it had kind of an artist label on it. I was like, I've never seen this before. So I didn't pay attention to it, but she took it over to my sister-in-law's house for us to enjoy. And I opened it up and there was no pop to the cork. I go, oh, this bottle's bad. I looked at the label. The bottle was from 1985. They gave her like a bottle from 1985 that had it had no bubbles left. And it when you open up an old bottle of champagne that's been oxidized, it's it's brown looking. It kind of looks like sherry now.
Oh wow.
And it's got the caramel colors, so it's kind of beautiful looking, but it ended up tasting like a dessert wine because it had no more bubbles. It was basically just Chardonnay that's been really aged.
Mm.
And it was interesting. You could actually drink it and if you were in the mood for a dessert style wine, but I told her, I go, if you're not into that style of wine, just cook with that also. So we had two bottles of wine that we ended up cooking with on the same
So
day.
so as a wine enthusiast, just Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody told me this. Maybe I'll validate with you. So when people pick up a bottle of wine, sometimes, they're all the same, basically the same volume.
Yep.
Some are heavier, some are lighter, some have large divots in the bottom.
Yeah. The punt.
Okay.
The punt.
Um, yeah. So the explanation that was given to me is the ones that are um really heavy are meant to be aged. Okay. The glass is heavier, it's darker, something like that. Do you
Yeah.
know anything? You know any
Yeah.
lore about how that?
There is a marketing thing in the wine industry where, the bigger the cork, the larger the punt, the thicker the glass, it's a better wine. But a lot of time that's bullshit.
Right.
Um, because if you look, I'll if you look at a bottle of Petrus,
Hmm.
which is, a $3,000 $3,500 bottle of wine, it's the cheapest bottle that you're ever going to buy as far as like packaging costs.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with the shape, the size, the glass.
Does it age
It's
well
yeah, it actually
in the bottle?
does.
Age well in the bottle.
But
All right.
it's the same bottle that Margot uses. It's the same bottle that Lafite uses. It's
Okay.
they're not using anything more special. It's really about what goes in the bottle. A lot of times, what happens is that, it's the bigger the cigar box, the fancier the cigar box, the cheaper the cigar you put in it. Like,
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's an unfortunate part of marketing and the industries that we live in. But like I've seen a lot of beautiful bottles of wine that basically had shit in the bottle.
I mean,
And then
I mean,
the simplest bottle has the best wine.
yeah, and like when I think about your basic mainline brands, right? You have the simplest of bands on them.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
fairly simple. I
You
really
know,
want it to be about the cigar. I mean, listen, I'm very proud of every cigar we've come out with. I'm very proud of the cigars that we make with the family. But are they for everybody? No. We like them, and that's ultimately what we believe in. Is that if we like them first, then it's worthy to put it out in the market to see if anybody else wants to even try it. But it I don't try to dress it up so much that it's kind of like a false hope. And
hmm
that's what I find, because I learned enough about wines over the years that there's a lot of false hope in wines, and there's always been a lot of false hope in cigars. You walk in, you see the prettiest of packaging, and you're like, that's got to be good, and then you end up being disappointed by it.
Tell me about
Yeah,
it.
the proof is, in it's what you put inside the box or the barrel or the bottle, not how fancy the box or the bottle is.
Now, do you try to produce your cigars where they have um a signature Tatuaje note? I mean, they're going to vary, but something that tells you that that's Tatuaje, regardless of the wrapper that's on it.
Yeah, there's always going to be a little bit of DNA because everything is based off of the original brown label, in the sense where that blend I know so well that I can dissect it and move it up and down in strength levels and then change wrappers and get different results. Obviously, they're different blends, but I'm not trying to overthink it either. Like I used to go in the factory and sit there for days, like testing different tobaccos and realizing that, yeah, they all have their purpose. But as soon as I started overthinking a blend, I started fucking up blends. So I mean, like, I over the years I've really tried to simplify where I know what regions I like and what tobaccos I like. And if I replace a tobacco with another tobacco, it's going to be from something that I appreciate. And will I take chances on like new varietals? Absolutely, but they have to fit within the original DNA. You know,
Right.
that's the best way to explain it. If they don't work with that original model in some way, I'll usually steer away from it.
Yeah. Padron does that too.
Yeah, it's probably the safer play, but it also helps with production because, like when that the factory and the farms are growing, I mean, the family grows X style of tobacco and, they grow certain amounts of it each year. You try to utilize that tobacco and you'll get different results based on the different levels of the plant that you choose.
Hmm.
And you'll get different results based on the different wrappers you put on it. And that's why I'm a true believer of, just in Nicaraguan tobacco. And you could take even like three seed varietals, and let's say five different choices of wrapper. You're going to get a lot of different blends
Yeah.
just with manipulating the primings. Like it's kind of unlimited. You just never know
Well,
where you're going to end up.
I I agree. Okay, because the permutation just mathematically do some permutations in your head.
Yeah.
Okay. But you also you had in an article years ago, you made a statement that you felt like pretty much everything that's been tried has been tried
Yeah. That was a
in the
cigar
market.
aficionado, right?
I believe it might have been.
Yeah.
All right. You still believe that?
Uh, no, I mean, does Criollo 2022 taste different than Criollo 98? A little bit. Um, is it cool that we have new seed varietals that may be more resistant to problems in the farm available?
Right.
Yeah, and will the thickness of the leaf be different? Probably, but it's still Criollo. You know what I mean? It's just a new seed.
It's still a characteristic
There's
that
still a characteristic. Um, I mean, if you go back and, this new documentary that we're working on, that's kind of a mashup between my father, Tatuaje, and a little bit about George Brightman. Um, there's a segment with Tony Berhani, and he talks about when, I always thought he was cheating with the tobaccos he was using. I thought he was getting Cuban tobacco, you know, because he was making cigars in Costa Rica, and he had this style of flavor that I was like, man, he's got to be putting some Cuban tobacco in these cigars because it's every time he brings me a new cigar, it's always different. They're like he's got a different blend every week, and then he comes out in the documentary, tells people that it was Italian.
oh,
So, like,
oh,
like if you look at some Italian tobaccos, you can get different flavor profiles. And has everything been tried? I think if you go back in time, that you'll end up repeating history um, multiple times because it's probably been tried.
well,
Because
where are you on hybrids though? So you got to put science into this now when you
yeah,
genetically modify this stuff.
yeah. I mean, if you look at Pelle d'Oro and Sancti Spiritus was a
Hmm.
hybrid between Criollo and Pelle d'Oro. Because it was resistant to blue mold. And I was really happy when I saw Sancti Spiritus. That was a tobacco that I thought it had the notes of Pelle d'Oro, but the kind of that hay quality that Criollo can kind of be sometimes. Um, so it had those cross combinations of those two varietals put together. I don't know. I I think they're just looking for tobacco nowadays. I think when they do a new seed varietal, they're always looking to maybe taste a little bit better, but also I think they're trying to make it more resistant to problems in the farm.
Yeah, I would think so. Because
That's where hybrids come into play a
yield.
lot.
It's all about yield
Yeah,
coming off the farm.
but I don't know. I think if you go back to, you were talking about Arnold Seraphin,
Hmm.
I think, if you look at his history in the industry and his family
Fathers,
lineage,
yeah.
they probably tried a lot more things than most people do now because I don't know. I think that there is part of history that we'll end up repeating because there are people way before us that did it first. I
Right.
I think there were more gamblers back then. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Yes, there were risk takers. There were more risk takers, I think, perhaps.
well, I mean, like a lot of people don't know that a lot of Cuban farmers used to go to Connecticut to watch how Connecticut broadleaf used to grow.
Mm.
Like, so there's a lot of shit that they were doing even way back when. And now, okay, yeah, now you got Nicaraguan Connecticut broadleaf or Honduran Connecticut broadleaf or Cameroon from Honduras. It's still the same seed because if you look at Sumatra, Ecuador, that's essentially Cameroon that was grown, or Sumatra, which is Cameroon, that was grown in Ecuador.
Right.
And yeah, it has a different profile to it. Like Connecticut, Ecuador has a different profile to it. And I prefer Connecticut, Ecuador over original Connecticut.
Yeah, it's got that natural, it's got the natural freaking cloud cover.
Yeah, and I also feel that it's almost creamier.
Yes, yes, it
Like
is.
it's softer to the
Doesn't have
palate.
the bite, doesn't have that bitter, that what I would always describe as the U.S.
Connecticut shade
Connecticut
USA.
bitterness.
Yeah.
You
Connecticut
know,
shade USA always had like a little bitter note to it. But like if you
but
go
people
back
have
and
come a long way with that. I mean, not
yeah,
just the leaf itself, but the blending, learning to put things with that as the
yeah,
other ingredients to tone that down. Like you take a USA Connecticut, you drop a nice Sumatra binder underneath it, it's smoothing that out. And now amp it up with some good fill to bring some of the nicotine strength up, and you don't have your father's Connecticut anymore.
a lot of like if you go back in time, a lot of the Connecticut cigars that we used to think of as Connecticut cigars, like Macanudos,
Hmm.
they always had like a Mexican binder.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
like Manolo Casada used to use broadleaf as one of his binders, or for some of his Connecticut stuff. So like that stuff was done back then, and now you get this news article on somewhere that's like talking about how, oh, they came up with this new thing where they're using broadleaf in the filler. I go, it's been done. It's been done before. Broadleaf's been there before. People have played with this way before all of us. It's not new. Um, yeah, like Dan and Casey came to me one day and said, "Hey, if you don't know Dan Sergis, Dan and Casey, my brother, that works with me in Atelier and everything, um, they came to me one day and they're like, "Hey, we're thinking about like maybe utilizing some Mexican as one of the binders. We use two binders on every cigar, like every cigar, even the
So
cheapest
when you did
cigar.
the Tuxla, right? What'd you do with that?
Well, that's the Tux is the wrapper, the
That's
wrapper.
just the wrapper. You didn't put any Mexican in the middle.
No, but the
Okay.
negociant actually has one of the binders is San Andreas,
Okay.
and it actually gives it like this rounded vibe to it, like maybe a little bit more earthy. And I told them, I said, it's been done before. They're like, who? I go, Macanudo did it first. Like Macanudo used to use, San Andreas or Mexican tobacco for a binder. Uh, but that was, when most people were using single binders on every cigar. Um, I would say that, like fast forward to when Pepin showed up and he started doing two binders that mimicked the Cuban thing because they used two binders of two different seed varietals. Um, I think that kind of made a lot of people go, "Oh shit, two binders. Let me try this two binder thing." But still, to this day, a lot of people use, single binders, and a lot of times they'll use a single binder that has very neutral qualities to it because they don't want to take away from the filler or what the wrapper is
Mm.
going to do to the cigar.
And even the dual binder, there are those that know how to make that work because it's not just the flavor with the dual binders.
Yeah.
If you don't have the proper combustion, that cigar is going to suck. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
care. It's
yeah.
not going to burn right. It's not, you're not going to be happy with it. And believe me, I've had more dual binder cigars. Everybody promotes, oh, it's a dual binder. It's like, okay, great. I smoked the thing and it's garbage. All right. It just doesn't burn right. It's horrible. I'm putting the flame to it all the time. And I'm like going,
That
okay,
could be a
another
moisture issue too.
with the dual binder
Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
Yes, this is the problem. This is what I'm getting at, right? So, you almost got to let them dry box for like, a year, to get this stuff out of it. Um,
It's funny
now,
they say that because when we started, a lot of people were like, "No, I dry box my tatuajes because they don't burn great." But people didn't realize it had nothing to do with the fillers in the binder. It had everything to do with the wrapper. The wrapper was produced or grown by a grower in Nicaragua, and it was in the early days of them growing tobacco, and they couldn't get their tobacco to burn great on the wrapper. So like I didn't care about the burn quality of it. Like I cared about the flavor and the aroma. So that was more important than like I have a lighter, I'll just retouch it. But man, looking back on it, it was problematic. So people would go, "Oh, I dry box my tatuajes so they burn good." And that was like,
mm,
early 2003, 2004, 2005. And then we ended up switching in
that's some
2005.
harsh feedback.
Yeah, we ended up switching to a different producer in 2005 for the wrappers. And then in 2006, we ended up switching again. We went from Corojo to Habano in 2006, 2007. And if you look at Habano, Habano 2000 was another wrapper that was grown in Ecuador that wouldn't burn properly.
Mm.
So if you looked at the product that was coming out in like 2001, 2002 using Habano, it really got a bad name because it didn't burn good. And eventually that seed corrected itself and it ended up burning really good. So ultimately we made the happy move to a product that didn't skew the flavor so much, but ended up burning way better. And looking back on it, I'm like thankful that we switched and ended up giving us a relationship with a grower that we've had since 2006 that we'll have for the rest of our lives. So,
Now, with all the availability of leaf you have access to.
From the valleys in Honduras to the heart of Louisiana, where excellence thrives, two legacies come together to harvest a new tradition. For many years, Honduras has been a symbol of quality and hard work, inspiring many achievements. At Bocock Brothers, we craft cigars that embody passion and precision, rooted in a commitment to excellence. From the tobacco leaves in the fields to crafting the cigars in the factory, we celebrate our partnership with LSU. Introducing the LSU Commemorative Cigar Collection. Each cigar a tribute to the spirit of excellence that defines both. Join us in this celebration, a symbol of pride, a mark of distinction, a taste of history, crafting excellence together.
And today's show is brought to you by Platinum Nova Cigars. Platinum Nova is a family owned and operated premium cigar company. Only the highest vintage tobacco and the most skilled hand workmanship go into the making of each Platinum Nova cigar. This results in a timeless blend of art and craftsmanship. The Nova brand and the family's work are a tribute and an honor to their grandfather to always remember him and his infinite passion for the finest cigars. Their love for cigars started with their grandfather, a dedicated master blender and entrepreneur in the cigar industry. So the next time you're looking for that exquisite cigar experience, pick up a Platinum Nova. You can check them out at Platinum Nova Cigars, www.novacigar.com, and on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter channel.
Now I'm not gonna, I know you're not doing this in a production cycle. All right. But have you ever played with putting? I'm sure you can access Cuban tobacco in Nicaragua if you wanted to. Okay.
Uh, yeah,
Have you ever tried? Have you ever, in your own mind, just said, "Look, what if we just put some? I want to just taste what this would be like if I put a Cuban filler or a binder on this."
yeah, I've actually taken Cuban wrapper. A buddy of mine brought some Cuban wrapper, the Cohiba Maduro wrapper, to the
Oh,
trade show one year.
well,
This is way
spicy.
early on, and we rewrapped a bunch of cigars at the trade show, and Pepin thought that the quality was kind of shit, and if you opened up the bag, it was like pure ammonia. So, like, I was like, I didn't care. I just want to see how they age on it. And the
Yeah.
cigars ended up tasting amazing. But man, every time I'd open up the bag, it was just an ammonia bomb.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but yeah, played with, different, like I played with Costa Rican tobacco one time, and I realized that I could only use so much of it. And this was in the early days, and I'm sure it's changed since. But I found Costa Rican tobacco to be really salty,
Hmm.
like super salty. So I avoided it. I was playing around with some friends. Well, one of them was George Rico. He made me some samples one time with Costa Rican tobacco, and every sample we made was like super salty. And I'm like, try one leaf next time. Like we kept on
Yeah, I was gonna
lowering the
say,
amount.
just put a Costa Rican leaf in the filler somewhere to give that little saltiness, which can enhance flavor if
Yeah, and the
on the
saltiness
palate,
is a good thing because it makes you want to have a drink with it. It's kind of like why they salt peanuts at the bar, you know?
or make popcorn with salt on it in the movie
Yeah,
theater,
yeah, they want you
right?
to keep on at the bar. They want you to keep on buying drinks. I mean,
Exactly.
the amount of salt in a cigar is actually to wet your palate. It's actually a good thing, but
Hmm.
when it's too salty, it's it's over the top.
Yeah, when it starts cracking your lips, you got a problem.
Yeah, yeah. I
Had that
actually
happen.
another friend of mine in the industry, Dion, had a
Oh, Dion,
sample
yeah.
one day, and I go, dude, it's really salty. And he goes, yeah, I know, I'm correcting that now. And this was purely just based off of samples. This wasn't production. And it's just a profile that either you like salt or you don't. And I love salt, but I also don't want it over the top.
Right.
Um, yeah, we played around with different things, but never, it never shows up in the fact like someone that a friend of the family comes over from someplace and they happen to have a hand of tobacco and we fool around with it. But like I fool around with Cameroon tobacco because we have a bunch of sample bags in Miami. So I'll throw Cameroon on one of my Miami cigars just to see where it's at. Um, and I found that Cameroon tobacco people do really well with it, and I just choose to stay away from it.
Yeah, it's a tough wrapper to work with. I mean, it's very
Yeah,
thin, very
you,
fragile.
you got
It's very
great, you got
fragile.
great manufacturers
Any
that work with
expansion,
it.
any expansion in the barrel is going to crack that wrapper in a heartbeat.
Yeah, you need to have a really, high priming, thick relief to really feel
Yep.
comfortable.
Hmm.
Um, as soon as you go down to mid minus on the priming, you're gonna run into the expansion and the cracking. And I don't
Hmm.
want to deal with that.
So when you talk about different leaves, one of the people I think of that loves to experiment with leaves is, and this is going to be a selfish plug in a second, all
Yeah,
right, but is Ishmael. You know Ish
from
from Bam Cigars?
oh yeah,
Okay, so Ish loves getting his hands on some very exotic tobaccos, and he makes some really crazy blends. But that's not the reason I'm going to bring it up. The reason I want to bring it
doesn't
up,
he use Italian tobacco?
yes, he does,
Yeah,
and other and African tobaccos and other interesting places around the world.
yeah.
But the reason I'm bringing it up for you and for the view is I just want to let everybody know, kind of a selfish plug for Ish, good friend of mine. On the 22nd, they're going to be doing a raffle um, for PTSD operators. Okay, so for PTSD, they're making something called the PTSD Operators Blend, and they're going to be doing an auction on the 22nd. I believe that one of those auctions is going to be one of these cigar band arts that Lou Piscatelli makes.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So keep an eye out for that. I'm gonna probably post something on my Facebook feed this week on that. So keep an eye out if you want to support that, you want to get in on that auction. I'll get the details out on it. So selfish plug ended. So Ish, I love Ish, man. He just opened up a new place. You see his place down in West Palm?
Isn't it?
It's
Where
in the
was it?
Polo Grounds.
Yeah, that's what I thought I saw. I
I
saw
think
a
he's doing a
post.
grand opening. Actually, I'm thinking about it. Might be the 22nd is the grand opening. Okay, I was down there for the soft opening. It's cool. Right next to the wine, there's a winery right next to it. So, perfect place for you to go visit.
Wait, there's a winery in West Palm?
There's a winery in West Palm. Well, yeah, they make wine there. Yes, they
How
do.
funny.
They
I didn't
do.
know that.
In fact, they make all the wine, and they also make all the wine-based liquors that they use for the faux cocktails there too.
Very
So
cool. So they're
quite
doing
quite
all, yeah.
interesting. Yeah, so it's at the
What's it
country
called?
club. It's the West Palm Country Golf and Polo Club.
And
Okay, and what?
the winery is part of that?
Yeah, it's on the
Yeah.
property. It's right. It's actually his place is right next. You sit outside his place, right outside the winery, and you're looking right over at the golf course.
Oh, how cool. Yeah,
So
nice.
it's actually pretty cool. It's actually pretty
Yeah.
cool. So, so let me ask you, with all the stuff you've been doing, and you've been doing this now for 22 years
Yep.
as Tatuaje, okay? Um, what would you say if you were to think through it all? What are your top three blends or brands that you have under your umbrella, and what one, if any, you thought would be great was a flop?
Well, I mean, the Coho New series still is like one of the most popular things we do.
Hmm.
Um, Again, it all stems off of the original brown label. Um, we always go into every cigar, like again, I told you this earlier. When we put cigars together, we're going into it looking at it as like, okay, if no one wants them, we're gonna be, smoking the rest of them. So we better enjoy everything we're doing. And there was a brand called La Riqueza back in the early days that
Okay.
that I started in 2007, if I remember correctly. 2007, 2008, 2008. And La Riqueza it was Connecticut broadleaf wrapper, mid priming. So it wasn't like Maduro, it was more Rosado. Because I didn't want like a dark broadleaf. I wanted that like mid, just flavor over strength. And it ended up becoming like kind of having a cult following, but it never made it out there. Like no one really cared about the cigar. And it was
Mhm.
kind of a more of a disappointment to my father-in-law. Like he was he was like, what's happening with La Riqueza? Like he'd always ask me. I'm like, no, just people don't want to buy it.
Oh,
I'm like, I
wow.
don't get it. So we kind of shelved it for a while and we bring it back every once in a while. And it's actually been kind of like one of those things where people go, "Oh shit, is this the La Riqueza that you used to have?" I go, "Well, no, it's actually a little different because I, tweaked the blend a little bit to make it a little different. Um, so it's not the exact La Riqueza that we used to have, but it just never it did well for several years, and then eventually, I think it was 2017 or 16, we decided to put it on the back burner for a while. Even though
Okay.
we still make it for samplers, we didn't we didn't put a full line of cigars out anymore. Um, and then, like I think maybe Ambos Mundos. Ambos Mundos did really well. And since then I've actually done a few Ambos Mundos cigars that I called not Ambos Mundos because I didn't use the original blend, but the blend, it means two worlds. And the blends were kind of mimicking each other, but there was a reverse in the binders and also different wrappers. And it did really well for a couple of years. It was a price point driven cigar, so it was in that $6 range $5.50, $6 range. It made the top 25 from Cigar Aficionado twice, I think 2 years in a row, and it just never took off. It just
Hmm.
people stopped wanting it. And I was like, why do people not want this cigar? Is it too cheap? Like, is it too inexpensive? So the funny part is when I came back out with an Ambos Mundos for the Saints and Sinners Club that we do, people were upset because they thought they were getting like a $6 cigar. I go, no, this is not an Ambos Mundos. I changed the blend. This is disguised in an Ambos Mundos wrapper. I mean, an Ambos Mundos band, but it has
Right.
nothing to do with what Ambos Mundos was. So, yeah,
Now,
we've had a lot of disappointments like that. And then, we made, La Mission that we enjoyed, we loved, and then boom, it got number one in Cigar Snob, and then it got number four in Cigar Aficionado. So it did. That's been a brand that's been consistently like looked at, and we went into it going, okay, we made a really cool, dark box press San Andreas Maduro, um, with a lot of flavor and that we're happy with. And that's the reason why we put it out. We didn't expect it to be like a hit.
right.
Um,
And you got the
we,
completely different reaction than you expected.
yeah, I mean, we just thought it was just going to be something that we could put in the lineup that made it different than the regular Atelier, something we really appreciated, and it ended up becoming a bigger hit than I expected. I never really go into any of these cigars thinking that they're going to be giant hits. I always go into it, knowing that I love the cigar and hope for the best because, again, there's millions of palettes out there and millions of
Absolutely.
opinions, and you just
Everybody,
gotta take them where you get them.
everybody's got, what they like and what they don't like. And, I know I can, like I tell people, I have a friend of mine who hates floral cigars. Okay.
And
Just
I
cannot
like
stand.
floral cigars.
And when I would put out a review on a cigar that's got especially from the Dominican, like get a lot of those, right? So it's got a lot of floral notes in it. And he's like, that's like garbage. And I'm like going, you don't like floral.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Now I can go, I can move through the spectrum. Okay. I'm not going to say what my biases are. I have no bias in my reviews. I basically tell you what I get out of it. And he's like, oh, well, that cigar sucked. I can't believe you rated it the way you did because it's a garbage cigar. I said, what's garbage? He goes, oh, it's so much floral. I said, it's because you don't like floral. But the person who likes floral probably agrees with me in what I
yeah,
said as far as the end story. All right. So the palate is so individualistic. I might pick up dark chocolate. Somebody else, believe it or not, will pick up earth. They're very similar.
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah,
very similar. Okay. But I just have a tendency to pick up that dark chocolate as opposed to always saying it's earthy because
yeah.
my tongue just grabs that dark because I love dark chocolate. So I know those notes. I eat like 80% dark
Yeah,
chocolate on a
yeah.
regular basis,
Me
but
too.
it's a good palate cleanser.
Yeah. It's funny you said that because the word earth, like you talk to an old Cuban person about the earthy flavor, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
But it tastes
it's
like dirt? Like they have no clue what you mean by that.
yeah, it's
It's definitely like kind of for some people it's a little off-putting because they don't know what that means either. Like if you
well,
tell
that's
people
why
like it tastes like hay or you get this note of hay or grass,
well,
and people are like, why would you want that? Like, well, there's moments.
let's just say barnyard, right?
Yeah,
Very
barnyard.
common note.
Yeah,
Barnyard, right? It's got a
yeah.
barnyard. It's got a barnyard aroma. It's not so much I'm tasting barnyard. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm like, if I'm pre-light smelling that, it's got a barnyard aroma to it. And that's a very kind word
yeah,
for a true description of piss covered hay.
yeah, yeah. It's like when you're driving by
Which
a
is
field
what
and the
barnyard
yeah,
is. It's just piss covered hay and dirt, right? Okay, but it's got that barnyard aroma. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's great. I like Barnyard."
It's all about the sense memory and like when you were growing up and you were driving by a field that had hay in it and
Absolutely.
you're like, oh, I know that smell. And
Yeah.
sometimes you get different smells out of that. You're like, well, it smells like hay, but sometimes hay could smell like graham crackers. You know, like it's just weird. Everybody has their own opinion
Yeah.
of what they find.
And
Like
I go,
I don't find boiled chicken a lot, but
no, I don't find because chicken doesn't have much taste to it at all. I could tell you that because I've eaten raw chicken in my life in Japan, which is a dish. We won't get into the details, but it's a legitimate dish. And if you don't have the black sauce to dip it in, it tastes like nothing. All right. But sometimes when I'm reviewing a cigar, I'll sit there and I'll get a note. I'm like, I know this note. I don't know what this is. I know this note. I know this thing. This is it. But what is this? And I don't want to go use a generic, it's a generic spice. I literally like note that, mentally note it in my head. And when I'm done, I'll go into my kitchen and take out the spices and go, is it cumin? Is it this? And I start going through all the different. Nope. Nope. That's it.
that's it.
That's it. That's what it is. Okay. And
It's
how
actually
those,
smart that you do that though. That's you're training your nose and your palate. That's what they do with wine.
yes.
There's the Bacchus kit. There's a game that you can actually buy that has all these scents and notes of
Well,
what you
what's his name
find
does that? The guy
in
that does
wine.
the guy that does the book, Nick Cutro. Nick
Yeah, yeah,
Cutro?
yeah,
He
exactly.
wrote his book talks about he actually sells a kit for cigars that you
Yep.
can get all the sensory stuff. I was thinking about buying it and just maybe going to shops and like running events and go, here, let's try this. I'm going to teach you
There's
something.
the Bacchus kit. You can probably find it on Amazon. It's not cheap, but it has all these little baby vials inside, and it
Hmm.
has all these crazy different scents of what different notes that you'll find in wine. And one of the fucking vials is actually cat piss.
Cactus.
And people are like,
Not
why
exactly the aroma I like, but
why the heck would you want to? I'm like, next time you open up a Sauvignon Blanc, take a whiff of it first and tell me you don't smell cat piss. You won't smell it in
okay.
Cabernet. But a Sauvignon Blanc, you'll get that note and you're like, okay, it's there. And sometimes, sometimes it's things that people put in your head too.
Yeah.
Like
Well, yeah. I mean, when people read reviews I tell people if you're looking for a cigar, what it might do, how it's going to perform, and all this stuff, and you're into reading reviews, and not everybody is, but those that are, do not just read one review, read multiple reviews, because what you're going to learn from the multiple reviews is that there is a core set of notes.
yeah, yeah.
Every single reviewer is probably going to get if I get coffee and you get coffee and Coop gets coffee and Half Wheel gets coffee, you're probably going to taste some hint
Well,
of coffee or espresso in that cigar.
yeah, yeah.
If I'm picking up peanut and somebody else is picking up walnut and somebody else is picking up cashew, okay, you're probably going to pick up nut. But if I pick up something that nobody else does, there's a good chance you may not even get that because that's just the nuance that I'm picking up on my palate that nobody else found. It didn't affect them the same way.
It's funny because I see a lot of people drink different things with while they do reviews or they sometimes I've seen reviewers they drink the most insane things. But I'm thinking, you want to clean your palate, but you're actually putting other things on your palate. But I used to drink a lot of a thing called Rockstar Energy when I was younger.
Sure, I knew that.
I was never a Monster Energy, and I'm absolutely never going to be a Monster Energy fan because they cause problems for me every day. But Rockstar Energy, for some reason, every time I would light a cigar and I was drinking a Rockstar Energy drink or even a Red Bull, I would
Mm,
get a lot of peanut butter. Like,
interesting.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
it
and
affects your palate.
I would tell people like, dude, try this cigar and drink one of these drinks, and you're gonna get peanut butter. But it's just because that chemical imbalance happened, and that's how I got to peanut butter.
And,
It's
and
not
I
always going to happen.
and when I review a cigar, my cigar is the first cigar of the day. Okay, usually around 11 o'clock in the morning. Why 11 o'clock in the morning? Because I already had my breakfast at
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
You want
I've
to.
already had 2 cups of coffee, so I'm awake. So I got something in my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm awake. Right. I have bottled water, and that's how I'm reviewing my cigar. It's always done in the exact same environment. Okay. They come out of an electronically controlled humidor. Everything's controlled the same. I'm an engineer. I'm a control freak. So everything has to be under the same. They all get straight cut. I'm not doing no fancy cuts on them because that affects things. I wanted to say, this is exactly, I'm going to do this just like I smoke every other cigar. You
Yeah.
get the same shot. Okay. And then it just goes from there. You know? And I agree with you. You can't, if you're going to review cigars, you need to review them with a clean palate as a
Yeah.
minimum. Okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, like what you put in your palate before, and you're doing it smart, where you're actually breaking it up with a good time difference in between.
Yeah, I got about 3 hours.
Yeah, so your palate's pretty, stripped down by
Oh,
then.
and eat an unsalted, take an unsalted salt. This is Nick Kutro's thing.
Yeah.
This is amazing. An unsalted saltine cracker. Put it in your mouth, let it dissolve like a host.
Yeah.
Let it dissolve. And then take filtered water, swish it around your mouth, rub your gum, swish it, swallow it, get rid of it. Now smoke a cigar. You can do that between you do that between cigars, and I can guarantee you're going to taste things you never tasted before because your palate has now been set back to a pH of 7 because the baking soda in the cracker
In the
sets the
cracker.
pH
Damn.
to neutralize the palate.
Yeah, I've always like someone like, oh, I go, they're like, I had a bad experience with your cigar. Like, can I ask you, did you have it after dinner or lunch or like after lunch? I'm like, what'd you eat? Well, I had like a garlic pasta. I'm like, I go, the pasta can be
That you
pretty
can't get
clean, but
rid
the
of that.
heavy
That goes on
garlic,
forever.
yeah, like raw onions. Give me caramelized onions, but raw onions and then a cigar, I'm going to taste something completely different.
Dude, the garlic goes for so long that the mosquitoes don't like me. I'm eating garlic. Let's reel this back just a little bit.
Yeah.
I was thinking another thing about your life. So you probably see behind me, I got a couple
Guitars,
of,
yeah, basses.
yeah. Because I think
Yeah.
I know somebody who likes to play bass.
Well, is
So
that a jazz?
this is a Fender Music. This is the Fender Music Master Jazz 1975 vintage.
Wow.
Okay, and oh, by the way, that color, I had to redo the electronics. I took the
Mhm.
pick plate off. It's pearl white underneath here. That's just
Holy
how
shit.
much patina is on this cigar. I mean,
It's
on this
is it
guitar.
patina or is it tobacco?
It's a little bit of both. I've cleaned it, but it doesn't clean out. This has been in my possession since 1978. I
I'm
bought
trying
it
to
at
figure
3
out
years old.
the Jazz Master is amazing
The
because
Jazz Master is the long neck. This is the short neck.
yeah.
All right.
The
So
I'm curious though, the one behind you,
the other
is
one is
that
the Ibanez.
is an Ibanez. I was trying to figure out the headstock.
Yeah. So this is not the most expensive Ibanez in the world. I got this for a Christmas present many moons ago. But this is the FX or the EX, the EX. Okay. Much lighter guitar, man. That
Yeah,
guitar,
yeah.
that Fender,
That
man.
Fender's heavy as shit.
It,
Yeah.
it weighs on you, man. This one, not so bad. But I don't play it a lot. I've been messing with a bass guitar since 1978. I up until about
Have
5
you
years
had
ago,
that have you had that Fender that long?
I've had that Fender since 78.
That's amazing.
Since 78, yeah. And I just finished doing electronics. I restrung it with some Diodario's, and it's got a nice punch to it again now. But I was going to bring up the fact that you two are a bass guitar player
Yeah,
before you were Tatuaje Cigars. I just want
anywhere.
I just want to say that, the story that I read about you is that you would get a cigar, you walked out on stage with a cigar and your guitar. Are you predating Jim Hetfield playing
No,
guitar
yeah, way,
with a cigar?
yeah, well, way. James Hetfield didn't smoke cigars back when he started Metallica, and
Right.
I used to, when you could still smoke in clubs in Los Angeles, it became a thing for me. Like this was towards the end of the career of the band. Like I was really into cigars. My band members hated it because I would come to our band meetings and show up smoking cigars. Um,
And what were they
eventually,
smoking?
no, they yeah, well, maybe one guy might have been smoking weed. Um, but the singer actually eventually started enjoying cigars. But it was also one of those things I would sit there and in the living room of the apartment and just start smoking. They're like, "Did you have to do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's my thing right now. Like it's kind of like my
Yes.
thing." And yeah, I would show up on stage and I had my little kit on my amp. I had inside of a little tiny cigar box. I would have a lighter and a cutter and one cigar, and I would light up. And I learned
So
how to
you were chomping on the cigar
while we would play. But
and
then
learning
yeah, then I had
because like
to
cigarette smokers would put it at the top of the neck.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't do that with a cigar,
I would
right?
hold it. I would hold it in my mouth
Okay.
for as
Well,
long as I could, and then I realized that I had to train my breathing. But
yep.
I sang a lot of backup, so like yeah, I had to put it down a lot. But I would yeah, if you look at like Hendrix or even Page, they would always
Yeah.
have the cigarette at the end of
Sit
the
at the end of
guitar.
it, or Keith Richards and
Yeah,
stuff. But
they'd always
but
have
I would think that
yeah
you had to train yourself even while you're doing this, right?
yeah.
Even getting into it. There's got to be drool coming down your beard, man.
There was I didn't have a beard back then, but I had the funny thing is that that's when I learned that I was like, wow, I can't really do this because it's not really meant to be. It's kind of like I used to golf a lot when I was younger,
Hmm.
and I always had the cigar in my mouth when I'd golf. Even when I was, on the putting green, I'd have
Yeah,
the cigar in my mouth.
that's what I do.
When you have your head down and you start getting all that smoke in your eyes, you start to either drool or you can't see. That's kind of how it was with smoking a cigar on stage because I had my head down all the time because I strung my bass really low.
Okay.
So it was always I was reaching down and head banging also. So eventually it became just like a visual thing on stage more than me smoking a ton of it because like I realized I couldn't breathe.
Now, did you have a lot of hair? You were a hair band? Do you have a lot of hair?
We had
So you're
hair
banging
metal
your
eventually,
head, the hair's
but
flying around, you got the cigar in your mouth. You got to have a picture of that somewhere.
but well by the time I started smoking on stage, I had actually went to a nightclub one night where I was just in this weird vibe of like where the music industry was going. And this was when grunge was kind of eating our shit because we were in
Yeah.
Los Angeles and Seattle was taking over. And I walked into the nightclub and I had long hair and I went home and I cut my hair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was just like, and so I ended up having a short haircut, really long bangs, but a short haircut. Um, So like it didn't bother me as much because a lot of times I'd have like a hat on that would push my hair back. But when I was younger playing, yeah, the hair was down and like just a mess by the time we got done with the show. I
Because
probably
I know
lost
when I practice, and I don't practice enough, and I'm retired, I should be doing it more, but I get in and out of it, and I go in and out of it. I've been doing tablature lately, so I've been trying to learn some stuff. But I'll sit there like this. I'm doing like you would be doing, right?
yeah.
I know what you're saying. You're chopping, and like, oh, it's acid falling all over me, and I got drool coming down. I'm like, oh, God, and it smokes in my eyes.
Yeah,
Right.
no, it's not an easy thing to do. It's definitely not an easy thing to do, and eventually,
But it had
you
to be
get
a
used
look.
to
It
it.
had to be unique. I mean, it was had to
Yeah,
be unique at that moment.
by the time I started doing that, yeah, our look was a lot different. All of us kind of
Mm.
had shorter haircuts,
Oh, okay.
like or we didn't have like we no longer had the hair metal look to us or hair band look to us anymore. We were more grungy for the sake of saying, what we were more like by that time. Eventually, like when we broke up, um, we broke up because our singer didn't want to scream for a living anymore. But
Okay.
we ended up getting we got dropped by our lawyers. They call us in for a meeting. Like, well, what big deal. Our lawyers are calling us in for a meeting. And they're like, we have to drop you. We're going to find you a new lawyer, but we have to drop you because we just signed a new band that you guys sound too much alike. And that band was Stone Temple Pilots.
Ooh.
So that was that moment. It was like, okay, shit's changing because if you looked at Scott Weiland, he had the short hair. The guitar players didn't really have long hair. It was like more kind of like, Southern California grunge in a sense.
Yeah.
Because that was the same time that Seattle was taking over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Now they have it. Now it's back. Where where
Yeah,
where where, where are we today? I mean, it's like
yeah. I think you see more of London-based bands paying respect to the old rock and roll. There are still a bunch of American bands they're getting back into it, and but they're not getting the notoriety that that rock bands used to have. Obviously, the
no,
'80s and the '90s, early '90s were huge for rock bands. Um,
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I
the
grew up obviously with Zeppelin, Stones, probably Beach Boys and Beatles before that, but then serious stuff like Black Sabbath,
Yeah, and every once in a while you see this cool
Aerosmith.
ass band from some middle of nowhere town in the United States that's doing really cool old school rock and roll, and you're like, okay. And then they get noticed, and
Yeah,
they end up having a career from it, which is really cool. But yeah, we're in the middle of a different culture of music nowadays. That's why I still
yeah.
listen to all my '80s and '90s rock.
I mean, I'll tell you I've been to some amazing concerts when I was younger, especially as a teenager and into into college days. But the most epic concert I ever went to was my first one, which was the Rolling Stones in 1975 with It's Only Rock and Roll. But that's a whole story into itself. But the most one of the incredibly epic concerts I ever went to was a Black Sabbath concert. And I wasn't into Sabbath at the time, but my girlfriend's friend was. She thought she was Ozzy. She had long blonde hair. She just wanted to be like Ozzy. So they said they're going to go to an Ozzy concert at Madison Square Garden, Sabbath concert. And
Wow.
I was like, I'm really not into Sabbath. And they said, well, I said, who's the warm-up band? And they go, oh, no, some band that in New England called Aerosmith. And I'm like,
Yeah, Boston
okay.
band.
I kind of heard them on the radio a little bit. Okay, I'll go. So we go to the concert, and the stage is in the center of the garden,
Yeah.
right? And the Aerosmith comes out and just rocks the house. I mean, you're talking 1976, right? 1976, Aerosmith's one of
Yeah.
its
Killing
peaks
it. Yeah.
that was killing it, right? Coming on the scene in a big way. And Ozzy, I learned over many years after now I'm a big Ozzy fan. Ozzy promotes bands. That's what he
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Okay. So
He did
Aerosmith
that
comes
with
out,
Molly
does it.
Crew.
They completely rock the house. So lights go out, stage changes, light comes on, big chrome cross comes out of the ceiling. Dun, 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 dun. Ozzy goes, stop the music. I swear to God, he goes, stop the music. And the whole crowd's just like 20,000 people are like going, and he goes, Steven and Joe, can you come out here for a second?
Wow.
And he looks at him and he goes, don't you know you're not supposed to blow the main act off the stage? Now go back to your locker rooms or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they go on with the show, right? And they do, and back then, it wasn't like, let's play like 10 songs and two encore songs and call it a night. I mean, you're talking three encores or more these days, right? So they go to the first encore, the second encore, the third encore, the whole place goes dark. And what happens is he brings out Joe, Steven, Kramer all on the stage. All right.
Very
I
cool.
got two drum sets. And they did a whole medley of Sabbath and Aerosmith songs
Oh, how
to
cool.
close out the night. And I was just sat there and I was just like, this is historical. This is amazing
Yeah.
to see this. And at that point is when I realized, as I started to go to Ozfest, how much Ozzy is all about the music, about
Yeah.
promoting bands.
Hmm.
That's all he cares about. And when he gets up on stage, this poor guy right now is in a wheelchair and he's
Yeah.
about to go
Yeah.
do a thing, right? His last concert, he's going to be in a wheelchair, right? This guy gets up on a stage and all he does, as soon as the music starts, as groggily as he is, he just goes
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like a little kid jumping around the stage.
Well, I mean, as much as I agree with all of that, there's another portion of the whole topic that his wife really loves to promote bands because she makes a lot of money off of promoting
Oh,
bands.
yeah. Well, yeah, she's the business
Yeah,
behind the
she's
whole
the
thing. I
business.
mean,
Yeah, yeah.
Ozzy's not
Dude,
business.
Ozfest promoted so many bands, young, amazing
Oh
talent.
yeah. I
Um,
saw I saw Avenged Sevenfold play
wow.
down in West Palm years ago when they were just new. And my son took me to it because he was a big Avenged Sevenfold fan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ozzy. Man, if you look at it, what he did for Motley Crue is the same way. Like they'd always find like an opening act that they thought that was gonna, you know, progress to a different level, and then those bands ended up killing the other band, the main band. Like Motley Crue showed up. You know, I mean Motley Crue is not so much of a Motley Crue anymore, but when they showed up playing with Ozzy, they were out doing every Ozzy show.
Yep. And that's what's important. When you played, were you originals or did you do covers?
No, we did originals, but like when we would get hired to go over to Hawaii for like 2, 3 weeks at a time to play at this place called it started as the Jazz Cellar and then it turned into the Rock Cellar.
Okay.
So we had to fill up the time with covers because we went over there
Okay.
to practice, essentially practice and get tight as musicians.
Hmm.
But when people would walk in, they wanted to hear a little bit of both. So we would have to play a lot of covers. So it ended up being a lot of Metallica, Megadeth, and bands
Okay.
like that. Maybe a little Aerosmith, maybe some Kiss. A little bit all over the place when it came to the covers. But a lot of Alice in Chains. Um, yeah, it was just we were an original band that played like the Troubadour and the Roxy and the Whiskey. But when it came to doing the shows in Hawaii, we did 2, 3 sets a day in Hawaii.
Wow. That's a
So we
lot.
would have to fill it up with a lot of covers.
That's a grind, man.
Yeah, it was definitely a grind, but it was a paid for trip, and it gave us a chance to practice every day. Well, we would practice every day regardless, but when it came to the Hawaii gig, it was really about live practice. So
Right.
yeah,
What was the name
it
of the band?
was called Hung Jury.
Hung Jury.
We never did anything big. You know, the band fell apart before we went anywhere. Um, we made a couple demos and passed them around. Our lawyers and our management put them out there as much as possible, but eventually we just broke up. I eventually went on to play um, with a few different people. One was this band. I was in a band with Randy Castillo, who was Ozzy's drummer for a while. Randy's long gone.
Okay.
And I was in a band with him and this kid named John Lowry, who John Lowry ended up changing his name to John Five, and he's one of the most epic guitar players you'll ever see play. Um, but John played with everybody. He's playing with Motley Crue now, actually.
Okay. All right. I have to check
But
that out.
he played with Marilyn Manson. He played with Rob Zombie. Shit, he played with Katie Lang. Like I think he played with the Go-Go's at one point. He was one of those, MIT, GIT students that was really, like into the uh the theory of music.
The theory, the whole, yeah, the technical
Yeah,
side
I
of
was
it.
never
Yeah.
into the theory of music at all. I was like, if I listen to something, I learned how to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
and
did you feel that during that time in the LA scene? I know, like my brother, he had bands in Long Island, all right, and one of the problems they were good, and they played some big clubs on Long Island, all right, back in the late late 80s, probably, yeah,
late
yeah.
80s, early 90s,
No, actually before that. It was probably
early
early
80s.
80s,
Yeah,
early 80s and stuff. They played a lot of different clubs there, some of the big clubs up on the island. And they were actually billed like, not like, like five bands and they were like number three. So
yeah.
I mean, decent, right? And that had a band, one of the main bands that they had was a band called Ricochet, another
Okay.
one called Master Cylinder. I thought Master Cylinder was a pretty cool name for a band, right? But what happened was the problem they had is they sounded like every other Long Island band.
Yeah.
They had that sound. There was a sound, and they couldn't break through. Did you feel that pressure that like you sounded a lot like other bands that you were influenced by, that you just couldn't break in and have your own sound? Because that's a rough thing to do. Like you think of bands that have the unique sounds, bands like CCR, right?
Yeah.
Ain't
Yeah.
nobody doing CCR ever again.
Yeah.
The Doors were unique, okay, in what they brought to the table, right? And then a lot of bands sound, they're following the mold, and
Yeah.
maybe they had enough presence to put them out there as far as entertainment value. But
Well, the big mold, the big mold that was on the Sunset Strip when we were there was glam. And
yeah,
we were not quite glam because we all had very different influences. Like I was a Duran Duran, Kiss, Guns N' Roses. Like my influences were all over the place. Like our drummer was a big fan of King Diamond and Iron Maiden and things like that.
mhm.
One of the guitar players was a huge Dokken fan. Our singer was a huge like Warrant and Skid Row fan.
We're bringing out some names now to rock my head.
Yeah. And then one of the other guitar players was a big Joe Perry fan, and he was a big Aerosmith, and so we had a lot of things going on. Um, we were really into a band called Extreme, which Nuno Betancourt, Gary Chavone out of Boston,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
because we were kind of a cross of metal, hair metal, but with a lot of harmonies. So we were kind of a mix between Alice in Chains and Extreme. We ended up playing a reunion show in 2009 at the Viper Room. And the band we opened up for, which was our friends, they were called Blackboard Jungle. They never really went anywhere. They were more kind of like that faster pussycat type of glam, bang tango kind of glam rock. And when we went on stage, the guitar player looked at it, he goes, I had no idea you guys were so heavy. Like he forgot that we were, and we used to practice in the same studio with this band. So they're like, "When did you guys become so heavy?" We're like, "Well, towards the end, we started morphing more towards the style of music that we individually liked, and it ended up being, a lot of, uh, Black Sabbath and the heavier stuff and a lot of crazy metal, but then on top of it, a little bit of grunge, but with harmonies. So that's why when our lawyer said that you guys sound too much like this band that we just signed, and it was Stone Temple Pilots. Looking back on it now, we're like, yeah, okay, yeah, probably more on that vibe. I mean, we definitely didn't have the songs that Stone Temple Pilots had, but we had a. I always like to say that we were kind of like more like Skid Row meets Extreme meets Alice in Chains because we had the
Wow.
grunge, and there were bands like Saigon Kick, which
You had
no
kind of
one
a
knows.
fusion. You kind of had a level of fusion in you where you fused some different genres together.
Yeah, because we all had different influences, and
Yeah.
we all tried to put in those little influences in everything we did. So it would end up being a mashup.
Now, do you pick or do you pick
I
finger
used to
or
pick.
slap?
I used to pick.
Do you
Um,
slap at all?
I tried to get into slap, but I just never could do it great. So, like growing up and watching guys like Flea, like
Yeah.
I was like,
God,
I'm
yeah,
never going to be
just
able to do that. And being a big Jaco Pastorius fan,
oh my God, yes.
I was never going to be able to do what he did.
Oh
But
no.
like Duff McKagan was a big influence, and John Taylor was a big influence. And Duff would play with a pick. John would play sometimes with a pick and sometimes with his fingers. So, and obviously I was a big Gene Simmons fan. Like
Okay. Yeah.
so,
So
like it was really about being able to play the lick. And a lot of times I couldn't play the lick without a pick.
so you have these two fingers calloused?
Yeah, not so much anymore. All of my calluses have gone away. Over the years, when I sit in the house, though, like I started playing more guitar over the years, so
Okay.
I built up, picking on a guitar. But when I play with my basses, it's rare that I pick up one of my basses that I'm actually using a pick. I started
Yeah.
using my fingers. So yeah, my calluses are gone though. Like I just picked up a guitar the other day, and I was playing it for like 10 minutes, and I realized my fingers were destroyed.
Yeah, right.
Like I got to build these things back up.
Oh, it's just like my brother used to do when he played. He had an instructor that told him, gave him two things to do when he was learning to play guitar at like 13 years old. He says, when you go to sleep at night, I want you to get golf balls. He says, I want you to take your fingering hand. I want you to push golf balls down into
Oh,
your
for the stretch.
fingers
Yeah, for the
and
stretch.
wrap them and go to sleep at night with golf balls on your hands. Okay. And then he says, what I want you to do as you're walking to school every day, if you see a brick wall, rub
Rub
your
your feet.
fingers on the brick wall.
Oh, that's a
That's
great piece of advice, actually.
And that's what he did. He
Yeah,
literally did that. And my
the
brother to this
stretch.
day, he still plays. I mean, he plays at a church band and, at his house. And so when I watch it, I mean, I mean, the guy's just freaking amazing. I mean,
It's really about that stretch. You got to
it's
have
about the
yeah,
stretch, and I never got the stretch. All right. My fingers tend to be more nubby. They're
yeah,
not long enough. So like when I pick this up, all right, my problem is, all right, I can't get the extension that I want,
yeah.
and I keep trying, but I
If
just
you
have
look
fun
at
with it.
if you look at John Five, like we knew each other pretty well when we were younger. Um, when I ran into him recently, he acted like he didn't know who the hell I was, which was funny as shit. Um, life's changed and people move on, but like we spent a decent amount of time together. And when he was growing up, he started playing like when he was like maybe like 3 or 4 years old. And if you look at his pinky, it's actually longer than
Yeah,
one of his other fingers because he got that stretch so much.
that's amazing
Yeah.
to do that. And then my problem is I just recently too last year I do taekwondo. So last year I was sparring and I got caught with a sidekick on my pinky. So you see my finger here?
Oh,
See how it's bent?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's I broke this finger, right? It went all the way back,
Ugh.
right? And and I didn't, I'm too old to go to a doctor and be like, do something. I don't care, right? So now I have a permanently deformed finger, but it's weird because it actually gave me
Your
a
stretch.
it gave me a natural stretch.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to mess around again, and I every day, every other day, I pick it up. I spend maybe 30 minutes just trying something. I just want to learn like one song. You know, what I mean, it, it
Oh,
took me it took me a couple of decades to realize that when I was doing Smoke on the Water, which is the easy thing,
yeah,
that
yeah.
is not the baseline for Smoke on the Water, right? It's like I'm like when I read the tablature, I say, wait, no, and then I'm listening to it, I say, wait, that is nothing that I'm playing. That is the
Yeah.
lead. That is the rhythm guitar doing. So
So Dan that works for me, so Sergey's Dan, he's a bass player also. But
Dan
over
Lee,
the
Dan Lee,
no, Dan Welsh. Dan Welsh. Yeah,
Dan Welsh. Okay.
Surrogates Dan. That's what we like to call him. He's the guy that I made surrogates for originally, and then it became part of Tatuaje. Um, he was a bass player originally, and during the pandemic, he started going down this rabbit hole with guitars, and now he's the same way. He's like learning a song a day. Um, he's built up his calluses on his fingers, like to where he can sit there and play all day. And I'm like, dude, my fingers are toast after 10 minutes.
Yeah, right.
I enjoy it still, but like I just don't sit down as much as I should.
You
Um,
know, you don't have
it's
time.
definitely it's part of my
You got
past,
family
but
too.
yeah, like there's moments where I go into where I have my guitars, which is right over my shoulder here, and I'll play without like I've become introverted as I get older, and I like to sit down in a room by myself and not play in front of people. Um, when I was younger, I wanted to be on stage in front of thousands of people, and that was cool, right? But then I realized that there was a great place to hide behind a microphone stand.
My son's like that. My son plays guitar. He's also a very accomplished guitarist too, but he's also a science. He's a brilliant scientist. But he just got his fiance just bought him for Christmas a brand new Martin
Oh,
six
nice!
string.
Wow.
Oh my God. I was up at his house the other day and it's like listening to this sound of that guitar is like
Yeah,
nothing I've ever heard. It's just so smooth, so the tones just come out. It's like there's no other guitar that sounds like that.
yeah. They make beautiful instruments.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're like coming up on the 2 hour mark, which is a almost practically a record here for taking it to the nub. We covered a lot of stuff. I hope it's been entertaining because the people are still
No, dude,
watching. So
I like I like conversations about nothing.
well, that's the thing. I always tell people I go into these things unscripted. Okay, I don't know where it's gonna go. I have an idea of things I like to delve into, but then
Yeah.
we roll with the punches.
Well, a
Um,
lot of people that were watching tonight have to understand that we've never actually sat down and had a real conversation before.
no, we haven't. In
So,
12 years I've been doing this. I mean, you were either so busy at the show, I never get an opportunity to sit with you at the shows because you're very busy. You got a lot of customers, you got a lot. I get that. You're always around doing stuff. So I've seen your brother. Well,
uh,
it's Casey, right?
Casey, yeah, I
Casey
like
over
to
here.
act like I'm busy. I usually just kind of run around in circles at the trade show.
Well, Casey kind of says you're less busy now, and he's more busy.
Yeah,
I think he
it's
told me
true.
that the last year at Smoke Ring 72. He said, "Yeah, my brother is just kind of homebody now, man. He's just kind of hanging around home.
Yeah,
That's his thing."
I still get out on the I still get on planes a lot, but I don't know. I've been really into working at the office more. Like, so I've been really involved with the day to day more so now than I was, like I started giving up the reins to do everything at the office like back in 2007, where like I ultimately that was when I was able to get off the computer and have someone full time, running invoices.
Right.
But over the last couple years with the new Miami warehouse, I started getting more involved with the day to day. And obviously during the pandemic, I had nothing to do. So I was constantly remoting into the system, making sure that everything was running properly. Like I
Of
took the time
course.
to rebuild the servers. Like,
But so when you think about where your journey's taken you, so you go back to your days of playing in a rock band and you wanted to be a rock star and you had this whole dream. You gave the dream up, you ended up going out, you started working for some cigar shops or whatever, and you ended up connecting with Pepin, who this new guy on the block in Miami, and you start making cigars. And here you are, 22 years later. What does that feel like? I mean, that is an amazing success story. Okay, you are an extremely successful businessman. Okay, in what you've done, you had to accomplish your dreams. Um, are you? I think I read somewhere where you really want to get into wine more,
well, yeah, there was a
but
brief moment, but I used it as a challenge for my palate. I
ah,
used it more as a like a giant vanity project because it was really a way to kind of challenge my palate with blending. So I never tried to make it a business. Like even though I made a bunch of wine in France, I never made it to try to like go, hey, I'm going to start a wine brand off of
wine
this.
business. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it was my own label and it was imported under my own label, but at the same time, I was like, I'm just collecting wine at this point. So
Okay.
it was never really a business model. I always joked when I was younger that, like with the cigar business and, eventually the end goal would be to kind of just sit back and pick grapes in a vineyard and probably croak, from a heart attack picking grapes.
No, no,
Uh,
you just stomp them to get the exercise.
yeah. And then, like smoking cigars, picking grapes in a vineyard sounds like a pretty good time, but no, I'm getting more involved with the day-to-day stuff again. And, you know, the, you know, owning a cigar company is not, it's not like, not every cigar company is like General Cigar, where they have, 200 people working for you in the offices and you have a 10-person marketing team. Our marketing team is me and, my brother and Dan. We come up with ideas. Um, and it's usually me having some crazy dream in the middle of the night, and I wake up, I go, that's a cool idea for marketing. But when it comes to cigars, you know, I'm I'm always looking for something new to smoke and enjoy and put together. But I I'm not like trying to push myself too hard on it. Like I want to
Yeah,
make sure that we do new things, but I also want to make sure that we do the right thing and not just make a cigar as a commodity. I want to make cigars like I think more and more over the years we're making cigars more for a purpose than just to sell it. And originally it was always like, okay, if I sell a few of these, I can make an extra paycheck and I don't have to do, I don't have to work behind someone else's counter anymore. Um, and eventually that changed to where I was never working behind anybody else's counter anymore, but I still had to make sure that I produced enough product that people actually would enjoy, that we could actually have a thriving business out of and support everybody that works for us. But it's never driven me to like be bigger, bigger, bigger. Like
right.
I like the small family atmosphere of a cigar company. Um, Is the brand much bigger than it was back 22 years ago? Yes. Um, but we're still very small minded. We have a very small crew in Los Angeles and a very small crew in Miami, and we work lean and mean, and we come up with new ideas to create new products for the market that we think that are great for our palates, and the bonus is when other people like them too.
Well, that would be a model that is less stressful, I would think,
Yeah, I think
than
the older I get, I want the road with less stress on it.
right.
Because I
Right.
went through that road where I was like, okay, I have to perform. I have to I have to be on
You
the
got to
road
prove yourself.
constantly.
You have to prove yourself. You have to get
People
out
have to know the
there.
brand name.
Right.
People have to know that we're that we're working hard to produce these things. And ultimately, I live in a world where we have three great factories, actually four now, but all owned by the family. So all
Right.
Garcia owned factories that I get the easy job. Like I have the easy job. I'm the guy that rolls in and uses their workplace as a playground.
Right.
And I get to sit in a room and play mad scientist and come up with fun things that I enjoy. And my brother-in-law works his ass off. Like he's thinking of a bigger, different model though, because he's got he's got a grandkid already. Like
Mm.
there's seven grandchildren in the under Pepin, and then there's already a great grandchild under Pepin. Um, so they're looking for a family legacy that's going to travel on for multiple generations. Um, I don't know
But
where
that's what
the
I was thinking, that you have there is a legacy brand being grown here
yeah.
that brings generations in. So this is, again, when we think New World cigars, right? And we think of, the brands that have come out over the last 20 years that are sustaining, and there are those that have the direct lineage to the original Cuban exiles and all of
Yeah.
that, and then there is those others like yourself that are this, who's this gringo coming into the game,
Yeah.
right? Who's this guy from the state of Maine, rock star tattoo dude that's walking in making cigars, and you've made a name for yourself. And if nothing else, I know if I was you, I'd be like, I want that to survive. Okay.
Yeah, and then
Even if you were
ultimately,
to, even if you were to take a back seat and bail, in 10 years from now, say, you know what, I'm just gonna kind of, pseudo retire and just,
well,
enjoy my life with my wife.
I don't think cigar like real like I it's kind of hard to put myself in the position of a real cigar person in the sense because I am the outsider gringo, but I've been living this cigar world for 32 years.
Right.
Um 22 years with the brand. Ultimately the end game for me would be I would never retire. I would probably end up dying in a factory or, smoking a cigar somewhere. Um, but I want to definitely put it in the best hands, and I'm hoping that like my brother's son will want to get into the business, and I'm hoping that one of our kids in the house will want to take over Tatuaje in some format. Um, I always joke with my wife. I'm like, it'd be better if you just buy Tatuaje. That
Hmm.
way, it's going to go back to the family anyways, eventually. But I'm always going to be in the room overlooking, kind of like Pepin in a sense. Like Pepin's, still very active.
Yeah.
He's in the farms every day. He's in the factory every day. He just went back to Nicaragua yesterday. Like the guy is like he really feels lost without being amongst what he's been doing since he was 7 years old. He started working in a factory at 7 years old. He started making cigars
Right.
at 11. Um, I always joke that, yeah, I'm going to pass on the brand to one of the kids, but I'm always going to be in the room telling them what to do.
I agree. Yeah, you'll probably do that. But then, of course, you'll eventually be, they'll kick back and go, Dad, there's a new wave here, and you'll be like, yeah, I remember that new wave stuff. I did that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
okay.
it's
And
actually
then you'll tell them, they say that was already done before.
exactly. It's funny you say that because I was having a conversation with my wife and our oldest. He's like trying to think of different things to bring to events to for swag.
How old is your oldest?
23.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So he's prime, man. He's ready.
yeah. He graduated college and he was in outside of Boston. Um, he went to a small community college outside of Boston. He ended up going for volleyball because he was really good at volleyball.
Right
And
on.
thankfully, it's a great way to get a little bit of a scholarship for playing sports.
That and
But
tuber.
he ended up, like he knew that he was going to have to get into the family business. The joke was he got a 2 week break between school and work.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
but he's starting to think of like, hey, what can we do for things to bring to events, swag items, and he's talking about these things in front of his mom, and I look at his mom after he leaves the room. I'm like, that won't work. Like
Uh,
I go, he's got to start thinking about things that people want to utilize, like and not dispose of.
yes.
Like,
Yes, it's got to be things that they're using all the time. One of the greatest things that you want to have is like, okay, you want a really good cutter,
yeah,
okay? You want a good lighter, okay? You want a good corkscrew,
yeah, yeah, man, I
all
have
right?
those.
All right. I mean, there are very few, if any, that I know of. I do not have any cigar branded corkscrews. And
I
I'm an
have
old
one.
school.
I have one.
I'm an old school corkscrew guy, right? I'm the guy that wants to twist the thing down and then hook it on and pull it up. Because I had one of those from my grandfather that was like from 19, let's see, there's a 1920s.
Wow.
I inherited this thing, and at the end of it, it had a little bottle opener, right? But that thing lasted me. It finally died about 4 years ago. It finally broke,
Wow.
you know. But that thing, and I can't use this stupid shit that people come
Nah,
out. I
yeah.
hate those things. I
I,
want screw it down, lift it up, and go
I
boom.
I found so in 2007 I took my first trip to France and I ended up being in a store in Paris and I found this corkscrew that I was like, man, this is like exactly what I've been looking for. Kind of chunky, Teflon coated um, corkscrew. So it actually it went into the cork really easy and smooth. The blade for the knife was really serrated so you could get the capsule off. And I went back to my guy that I knew that was doing stuff from like one of these jobbers that does stuff over in China. I go, can you find this for me? And he came back. He goes, yeah, this, and I made like thousands of them. So I still
Wow,
have some. I still have some.
awesome.
And I gave them away in the membership kit for Saints and Sinners one year, and
Okay.
I branded one under Tatuaje, I branded
Oh,
one under Saints and Sinners, and another one under my wine brand. But it's just a simple corkscrew, but it holds up and it works great every time. There is one corkscrew out there though that if you have an older bottle that has problematic corks, this is the most ultimate corkscrew, and it's a two-piece. It's called a Duran system, and it has the forks where you have the two blades
it's
that
on the
go in,
side,
and
on
then
the
you have the
side of the
corkscrew
bottle,
also.
and then okay.
And so you utilize the two pieces, and it ends up you get the cork with the corkscrew, but then you get the forks on the side, which help you pull it out. That's probably the best thing for older bottles and older corks. But if you have a good new bottle that has a good cork in it, I think the one that we put together is always and by the way, people have actually copied that same corkscrew, and there people are selling that corkscrew. And like I didn't invent it; it was already on, it was already
Right.
out there in the
Yeah.
ethos. But someone I saw one the other day on Amazon for $40. I was like, you got to be kidding me! I didn't pay
There you go.
$40 for this thing.
So let me ask you a question. We keep rolling with the show. So,
Yeah.
so bottle of wine. Okay, we've all had this experience, right? I got a bottle of wine. Damn it, I don't have a corkscrew. All right, your hack on opening up a bottle without a corkscrew.
I usually push the cork in with a knife. Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I push it in. Be very careful it doesn't splash out. You got to kind of do it the right way, not
Yeah.
cut
And
your
then
finger
you
off.
gotta turn it upside down so the
Turn.
cork floats to
Well, once it's in, yeah. Once it goes through, the first pour is hard. After that, it's not so
yeah.
bad. But yeah,
I've
yeah.
actually have you seen the shoe one where
No,
people put it inside of a shoe and they bang it against a wall? They
no.
bang the base of the bottle against the wall
Oh,
and
it's like kind of opening up a bottle of
it
ketchup.
it it pushes the cork out. I've never tried it.
I
I've
hate to see what
always
the wall looks like, though. That's
yeah, I think that's why they put it in the shoe, but it's really about the pressure. But if I don't have a corkscrew, I'll see if I have like the two forks because those that works pretty easy. I've
yeah,
gotten used to
yeah.
using those, but the corkscrew, the one I use the most is the one that I did.
Because
And
I had to actually
you
do
got to
that
send
the
me
other
your address.
day.
I'll send you one of them.
Yeah, I did that the other day at my son's house when I was visiting because they had a bottle of wine. There was no he didn't have any corkscrew. It was at his it was he was living at my ex mother-in-law's apartment downstairs, and he didn't bring all the stuff back. So I mean, if you're gonna bring stuff to your new house,
Yeah.
bring a corkscrew because you got lots of bottles of wine. So I was like, we got to open this, and I was like, okay, give me a knife. I'm gonna show you how to do this. And he's looking at me, he
I
goes, Dad, you're going to slice your finger off. I said, Nah, I'm a professional. I've done this a few times.
my brother-in-law moved recently, and I went over to his house and I looked around. I go, a guy who owns a cigar company. I can only find one ashtray. Like, what's wrong with this
Oh,
picture? Meanwhile, 10 miles down the road at the office, they have 1,000 ashtrays, but
yeah.
they haven't brought any over to the new house.
Yeah, I got way too many of those things. I have ashtrays and boxes I haven't even open, man. It's like, don't give me
Yeah,
any more ashtrays.
I'm the same way with this ashtrays, cutters, lighters. Like every time we go to a TAA, there's
Yeah.
always a gift bag at the TA with cutters and lighters inside. And we're like, I don't need another cutter or lighter.
Nope.
Like
Nope.
I end up, it's horrible to say, but
I
most
settled
of the
on
time I leave them in the hotel room.
I I enjoy my Zycar cutters.
Hmm.
Okay. This one here was from the 2023 exclusive launch by Zycar down in Miami. I went to that
Oh
event.
yeah, I saw you went to
Right.
that. Yeah.
And then what came with that was this lighter, okay, the Zycar lighter. And what I like about this is the fan
Oh
flame.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, everybody should have a fan flame lighter. This just works
Yeah.
and doesn't stop working. All right, it's like it's got the little slit on the top.
Hmm.
I don't get a lot of garbage caught in that, right? I never have a problem with those. So those are my go-tos now. Plus I got a bazillion other things here. I got this thing here, it's like
Yeah. So
it never works.
I love this. This is a T3 or T2 or T3 from Lotus. And they've
Yeah.
been making this tabletop forever. I think they've been making this tabletop for probably close to 20 years. It just works. And
The Lotus is always where I have a Lotus lighter from Perdomo that I got almost 20 years ago that I have to actually bring it back from the exchange the guts out finally because it's not giving me enough flame. There's some weird stuff going on with it, but it lasted 20 years. It's crazy.
I actually enjoy taking apart lighters. That's like when the Blazer uh torch came out back in the early 90s. I ended up probably taking apart easily 1,000 of them to fix for people. And
Yep.
I got really good at fixing them. So
Wow.
when someone has a broken lighter, I'm like, give me a screwdriver. Let me see if I can fix it for you. I just
Well,
I don't know, I think it's just part of the generation that I grew up in that we like to fix things ourselves.
These are some of my most favorite when you think about accessories, right? Absolute accessories or cool shit that people come out with in the industry. And I always get stuff, right? So we'll start with this one. All right. Big shout out to people here. All right.
Yeah.
Kevin Shahan. This right here, this bleeder, that has got to be one of the best ever inventions in the history of this market. Yeah, you have one of these?
No. What does it
All
do?
right. So what this does is I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. There are two little
Oh,
holes.
for the lighter.
Yeah, two little holes. It's a bleeder. So you just stick it in here
Yeah.
instead of putting a toothpick or some other goofy
Yeah.
thing. You go like this, and right at the top there are two pinholes,
Oh shit.
and it blows it right out of the top and bleeds the lighter perfectly. Kevin Shahan,
Oh
if
my
you know Kevin
God.
Shahan,
Yeah, I love Kevin. Yeah.
you call him up. He sells these nonstop.
Dude,
Second piece,
I've never seen it. What a smart invention, actually.
second invention that I really, really like, okay, especially for golfers or in the car. This thing here is from a guy up in I think he's in California. I gotta remember his name. But this is called the cigar stash. Now, what is this? So the back of this thing here, this is a magnet right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll connect to anything. There's also an attachment that connects to this that you get with it that connects to your vent on your car.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that works.
Now, when you open this up, see this right here? This right here is it's got different ring gauges that you can have this for. But the idea is the bottom of this, right,
Mm-hmm.
opens up. Now, what does that do? In the inside, you can't probably see it in there. There's a grid down here with holes in it. So if you take your cigar, damn it, I have a good. Okay, I'm gonna have to take this. All right. So if your cigar is lit, right,
Yep.
you take it and you put it in there like that. And what
Knocks
does
off
that
the
do?
ash.
So the ash drops into the bottle. Does two things. You can literally take this, walk into a restaurant, stick it on a table, and you don't smell anything.
Ah, smart.
In addition to that, you're in a car, right? This snuffs the cigar out in 30 seconds.
Damn.
30 seconds. Cigar is snuffed out. This is called Cigar Stash, and it comes with different ring gauge things here. There's an O-ring in here. It's a very well machined a device. You can stick this right on your the magnet. You'll stick right on a golf cart, whatever. Beautiful device.
Smart.
You've probably seen these. I love this one. I use this. Believe the science or not, the humidimeter.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have one in the
Freaking
closet here.
magnificent
Yeah.
freaking thing. Matter of fact, we'll just check your cigar right now. There we go, 72%.
Beautiful.
Straight out of the shop. And then, of course, the same guy making this. And I got to get this resharpened because I love this cutter.
Is it a V cut?
No,
No?
this is called this is made by the same guy that makes the humidimeter, Luigi
yeah.
Lucente.
Oh yeah.
This is called the baller. And if you look at this, see this?
Oh yeah.
If you look at the back, there's a ball. And the ball has a sharpened blade on it, like a melon scooper.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to use your cigar,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to go like this.
Perfect.
Not
Wow.
perfect, better than perfect.
Yeah.
So it's a punch, but it's got a concave cut. And what's nice about that, with a punch, you're getting that on your tongue all the time because it's never perfect. This is perfectly cut, smooth, easy to smoke.
Yeah. Can I
Fantastic
tell you why
device.
that's really, really actually clever? Because So I use my thumbnail a lot to cut cigars.
Yeah, I do that too.
Um, but sometimes you have rollers that really pack the head
Yes.
so much that they end up putting the tobacco in the head like a dimple.
Yep.
And with that concave, it gets all that potential dimple out
Yep.
because
And you don't feel it on the tongue.
I've actually had times where people like do a straight cut and they go, above the shoulder, the whole thing straight
Yeah.
cut, and they don't realize that they haven't cut through the whole cap because underneath the cap there's that tobacco that's been packed into the head that they
That's
haven't
it.
gotten through. That's smart, actually. That's a really
All
cool
right, so
concept.
those are my selfish plugs today. I don't know. We were just going on with it.
I love it.
My
But
my
the
wife
Shahan
just
thing,
came out.
the Shahan thing with the sideways vents,
Yeah,
that's cool as shit.
this is it,
Smart.
and it's not. These are very inexpensive.
Yeah.
Okay, and he sells these like hotcakes.
Your wife just came in. She said, "You got to stop."
My wife just came in and said the dog needs to go for a walk. My dog has to go for a walk precisely at 9 o'clock.
There you go. There you
Or
go.
at least he starts whining at that point. Anyway, I'm going to give you the last words, Pete. All right, this has been a phenomenal show.
No, I
Thank
love
you
it,
very
Jimmie.
much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the time. I mean, listen, we've never gotten to sit down and actually have a conversation, so I appreciate just shooting the shit, and I actually learned something from the show because I didn't know you were a bass player. That's a cool thing. And I didn't know that Kevin invented that little piece because I'm gonna go find one because that's a
Go,
perfect
Kevin.
bleed. That's a
Let's
perfect
go,
bleed.
Kevin. It's a perfect
Shout
bleed.
out to Kevin for that. But yeah, if you want to know anything more about Tatuaje, watch this show. You'll find a little bit more about me over the brand. Um, and then check out our Instagram page, which is Tatuaje Cigars or Tatuaje INC.
Fantastic. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the sponsors for sponsoring the show. It's always a little bit harder to do. Thank all the viewers for now and future. And this show will be up, archived on the YouTube channel for Stogie Press in 1 week from now, forever. So you can always find it.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
Pete, man, I would stay on an after hours with you. We're going to call this show right here.
The
I'm
dogs
going
take
to
priority. Trust me, I got one in the house right now, too.